We have studied already premolars, then we have molars. In the next session, we'll after finishing the molars, inshallah, we'll start carving of the molars. Okay. Molars are having bigger occlusal cavity for chewing or grinding purpose. The masticatory function of the molar is to grind or pulverize the food particles. This is a part of chewing. The molar crowns are usually short in the occlusocervical dimension, that is little smaller in height than the incisor. Canine, for example, incisor is about 10 millimeter, canine is about 11 millimeter. Premolars are also about 9 to 10 millimeter, but molars are usually 7 to 8 millimeter. Cervico-incisal height. Molar crowns, all these are the general information about the molar. Molar crowns are tapered from buccal to lingual side, usually. Buccal side is little bit bigger, lingual side is little bit smaller, like other tooth, it is known as lingual convergence. Okay, so all the tooth has lingual convergence, even molar. But there is exception. This exception is that maxillary first molar has lingual divergence. Only one exception, that is maxillary first molar. Its lingual side is little bigger than the buccal side. Height of contour or maximum convexity. On the buccal side, as usual, cervical third on the cervical third, because there is cervical ridge on the buccal third. Lingually on the middle third, middle of the middle third, like the premolars. There was an exception in the premolar, lower second premolar, but in the molar, there is no exception. All the molars, their height of contour on the lingual side is in the middle of the middle third. Contact area, if you view from the buccal or lingual aspect, at the near of the junction of the occlusal in middle third, mesially. Okay, mesially, just on the junction or very near to the junction of the occlusal third and middle third, and more cervical on the distal side. Okay, so there is no exception. It is same for all the two. So there are some arch traits. Arch traits means maxillary molars have some common features, mandibular molars have some common features, and there is some differences between the maxillary molars and the mandibular molars. Arch means the upper jaw is the upper arch, lower jaw is the lower arch. So arch traits means the traits which are present in all the maxillary molars and which are not present in the mandibular molars. Okay, let us see. Crown outline. This is number one characteristics. Maxillary molar is usually rhomboid in shape, but mandibular molar is rectangular in shape. Rhomboid and rectangular. You understand between difference between the rhomboid and rectangular, right? Rectangular is a little bit bigger in one size. Rhomboid is almost a square, but the angles are not right angle. All the angles are not right angle. Buccolingual dimension is bigger than the mesodistal dimension. In case of maxillary molar, the buccolingual dimension is always bigger than the mesodistal dimension. That is, the tooth is little bit bigger on the buccolingual side. Mesodistal dimension, mandibular molar, mesodistal dimension is bigger than the buccolingual dimension. That is, the tooth is little bit long, very sweet. Cusp, number, and relative size. The maxillary molars have three larger cusps: mesiolingual, mesiobuccal, distobuccal, with a fourth cusp of a smaller size, that is distolingual. Remember, this is the order of the size of the cusp is always true for the maxillary molars. And sometimes what happens, the distolingual cusp is very small or sometimes even absent in many second molar or third molar. Again, a much smaller fifth cusp is present in the maxillary first molar, sometimes very rarely maxillary second molar. Usually in the maxillary first molar, this is known as cusp of Caraveli or tubercle of Caraveli. This cusp of Caraveli is also present in case of second deciduous molar. So the maxillary first molar has 4 functional cusps and 1 non-functional cusp, altogether 5 cusps. Mandibular molars have 4 relatively larger cusps. two buccal, and two lingual. Usually, all the cusps of the maxillary molars or mandibular molars are almost similar in size, but they have differences in their height or width also, but almost very nearer size. Most mandibular first molar and some of the third molars often have a fifth cusp of a smaller size called a distal cusp. Usually, mandibular first molar has a fifth cusp called distal cusp. Sometimes mandibular third molar also has the distal cusp. Crown tilt. Maxillary molars are usually straight upright on their axis. When viewed from the proximal sides, maxillary molars crowns are centered over their root. Straight. They are standing straight on their root. But when you see the mandibular molars, as usual, I told you that all the mandibular tooth has a lingual inclination. So when viewed from the proximal sides, mandibular molars crowns appear to be tilted lingually. Number of roots, maxillary molars has three roots, of course, two buccal and in one lingual or palatal side. Mandibular molars have only two roots, a long mesial root and a slightly shorter distal root. This is two root. And the position of the maxillary molars root, two buccal, one lingual. But in case of mandibular molars, one mesial, one distal. Okay. Root trunk. Root trunk of the maxillary molars are far from the cervical line, making the root trunks longer. Means furcation of the maxillary molars, furcation of the root is little bit far from the cervical line, so it has a big trunk. But mandibular molars, the trunk is not that much big, a little bit smaller in comparison to maxillary molars. So let us start the maxillary molars. Maxillary molars, all these three maxillary molars has a similar art that I told you before. They are the largest teeth in the maxillary arch and in the oral cavity as well. Maxillary first molar is the largest one. Okay, if you calculate the volume of the surface, volume of the tooth or surface area of the tooth, maxillary molar is the largest tooth in the maxillary arch and in the oral cavity as well. The second and third molars are progressively smaller than the maxillary first molar. Features of maxillary molars which aid in differentiating them from other permanent teeth, particularly mandibular molars, include that we mentioned just before. Crowns are wider buccolingually than the mesodistal, and the presence of four cusp is most specimens of which the size of the lingual cusp differs greatly. This is the main thing. The presence of an oblique ridge in the maxillary first molar, usually sometimes in second molar, the maxillary there is oblique ridge and a distal lingual groove on the occlusal surface. No comparable structures are found on the mandibular molars. Okay. Oblique ridge, what is oblique ridge? Actually here in my maxillary molar, first molar, the mesiolingual cusp and the distobuccal cusp, they are attached with their transverse ridges. This is known as oblique ridge. Crowns, which are rhomboidal or heart-shaped from the occlusal aspect. Mandibular molars exhibit a rectangular or pentagonal outline. So, the maxillary molars has rhomboidal or heart-shaped outline. Crowns, which are trapezoidal in outline from the mesial or distal aspect. Mandibular molars are rhomboidal and inclined on the lingual in the proximal view. This is the difference between the maxillary and mandibular molars also. The presence of three root branches is in most cases. Mandibular molars normally exhibit two roots. Okay. Now we have come about the common feature of the maxillary molars and differences between the maxillary and mandibular molars. Now let us come to the particular tooth, maxillary first molar. Maxillary first molar has many features which we will study now, and then in the second class we will compare the maxillary first molar with the maxillary second and maxillary third molar. Actually, we should have model while studying the morphology, but unfortunately, the online class we cannot give you the models. Anyway, first permanent molar, both mandibular and maxillary, both in case of both molars, are known as 6 years molars. Why 6-year molar tooth? Why? Because the position in the arch number is 6. If you count from the midline, you will find the first molar is always the number 6 tooth in the each arch, each quadrant. And another reason is there, eruption time is 6 years. All the first molars are coming usually at the age of 6 years. And remember, the mandibular molar is the first tooth, first permanent tooth to come into the oral cavity. After the mandibular first molar is there, then the central incisor, deciduous central incisor shed out and permanent central incisor comes into the oral cavity. Mandibular is preceded by the maxillary, means the mandibular comes first, then the maxillary comes. Functionally, it is considered as the key of occlusion. Why? Why key of occlusion? Let me explain. Because when all the tooth, deciduous tooth, A, B, C, D, E, on each arch, there is 10 and 10 tooth, right? In each quadrant, 5 tooth. While these deciduous tooth are present into the oral cavity, the first permanent molar comes. When the first permanent molar comes, the deciduous space for the deciduous tooth, the space for the permanent tooth has been divided, because there is a big stump or big pillar arises like the first molar. So the space for deciduous A, B, C, D, E is now limited for permanent central incisor, lateral incisor, canine, premolar, and molar. These 5 tooth must make their space by removing the 5 deciduous tooth. They cannot have much more space because one big tooth is already behind them. So first molar, when they arise, they divide the arch into 2 halves, succedaneous tooth half and non-succedaneous tooth half. The second molar and third molar permanent, they will come behind first molar, and they will require more space, which is coming from the development of the jaw. But the deciduous tooth will be replaced by the succedaneous tooth, and this space is now limited. That is why this first molar is known as the key of occlusion. Permanent maxillary first molar. Just 1 minute. I want to see how many students are here already. Why only 12 students? Where are the other students?
They sleep, doctor.
They sleep. They are informed already or not informed?
Yeah, yeah. I told them yesterday.
You informed that the class will be from 9 o'clock. Thank you very much for cooperating me, because after the class I may go to the office because I have some work in the office also. Huh?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, permanent maxillary first molar, general form and function. The maxillary first molar is the largest and the strongest tooth in the maxillary arch and oral cavity. Has the largest crown with 4 well-developed cusps and 1 rudimentary fifth cusp. This is cusp is rudimentary, cusp of Caravaglia. It is much more complex than the maxillary premolars in both crown and root form. Much more complex means number of cusps is big, the number of sulcus, number of all these depressions, everything is big. Developmental groove is different pattern, so everything is complex. Normally, there are 3 roots, 2 buccally located and 1 lingually placed. As with all the molars, the main masticatory function is grinding. Basically, grinding the food. All the 3 molars, and premolars are helping in grinding. Position, of course, you know the 6th tooth from the midline in each maxillary quadrant. On the left side, number 6, on the right side, number 6. Tooth number, if you count from the for the universal numbering, it is number 3, the maxillary right first molar on the right side. On the left side, it is 14. FDI 1, 6 and 2, 6. And palmar system, upper left 6, upper right 6 with the bracket. Function, grinding food in mastication. Another function is there, it acts as a stopper for TM joint. We usually cannot understand. When you check, when you close your mouth, you will find the tooth is being stopped and your joint is under rest. But the patient sometimes who has lost their all the molars, the six molars, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 and 6, 12 molars. Sometimes it happens that 12 molars or most of the molars are lost due to some reason. Then they can understand that even if at least six tooth is lost, they understand that the TM joint is not in rest because the tooth are not helping to rest the TM joint. The tooth is lost, so there is a pressure on the TM joint to get more close. They want to close more, what should I, with more strength. So the TM joint is very painful, and sometimes there is some pathology there, appear some pathology. So this is also acting as a stopper for TM joint. Measurements. Overall total length is about 23.6 millimeter. This is a standard length for the European people and American people because the study from where we take this measurement, it is from the Wheeler. Wheeler is actually a British American book. So this may not be correct for the Asian people or for Saudi people or for Indian people. May be different a little bit. So crown length is cervical occlusal is about 7.5 millimeter. You see how short the tooth is, whereas the incisor was about 10.5 millimeter. Canine was 11 millimeter. But here it is only 7.5 millimeter. Root length, buccal roots are usually 12 millimeter. Lingual root is about 13 millimeter. Lingual root is also known as palatal root. The upper jaw usually it is known as palatal root. But if you say lingual, it is also correct. Mesodistal dimension of the crown at the contact is about 10 millimeter. Mesodistal dimensions of the crown at the cervical area, it is about 8 millimeter. Labiolingual dimension at the crest of curvature is about 11 millimeter. You see, the labiolingual dimension is 1 millimeter bigger than the mesodistal dimension. The tooth is labiolingual bigger than the mesodistal dimension. The labiolingual dimension of the root at the cervix is about 10 millimeter. And mesial cervical curvature and distal cervical curvature, you see mesial cervical curvature is about only 1 millimeter, whereas it was about 2.5 millimeter, 2.5 millimeter in the incisors. And distal cervical curvature is about 0. That's almost a straight line. Chronology and measurement. Mandibular first molar. First evidence of calcification is about at birth. Enamel is completed 2.5 to 3 years. Eruption is 6 to 7 years. Root completed about 9 to 10 years because after eruption it takes about 2 to 3 years for completion of the root. Okay, this measurement table I have given this reference from the Wheeler 8th edition. Okay, the overall measurement is about total 20.9 millimeter average, ranging from 17 to 27.7 millimeter. It may be as small as 17 millimeter and as big as 27.7 millimeter in different uh, nations and races. But usually overall total length, the size in Ulfel, the size 20.9 millimeter. In Wheeler, the size about 23.5 millimeter. Anyway, both the measurement is correct. Contact relations, mesial to the second molar and distal to the second premolar. You see the relation here. This first molar, maxillary first molar, it is related with the second molar on the distal side, and it is mesial to the second molar and distal to the second premolar. Okay, but one more thing you have to remember: it shares a mesial contact with the deciduous second molar for approximately 5 years. You know, these two comes into the oral cavity at the age of 6 years. 6 years, there was no premolar. This premolar area was occupied by the deciduous second molar, right? So, from the age of 6 years until the premolar comes at the age of 11 years, there was the mesial contact with the deciduous second molar. And at the same time, there was no tooth here because the second permanent molar is coming at the age of 12 years. So this permanent first maxillary permanent first molar is the last tooth in the arch until the age of 12. After the age of 11 years, the deciduous second molar is being replaced by the premolar, and permanent second molar is coming on the distal side. So the contractilation is being changed. Occlusion against the lower first and second molar. You see, the lower first, the upper first molar is related with the lower first and the second molar. The mesiobuccal cusp, this is the mesiobuccal cusp, the blue line. The mesiobuccal cusp goes or sits into the mesiobuccal groove of the lower first molar. This is the line. The line is the mesiobuccal groove of the mandibular first molar. So this is the normal contact relation with the mesial and distal side and with the opposite tooth. Chronology. The chronology we told you before, the chronology of the maxillary, not only maxillary molar, all the molars. This is upper 6 and lower 6 is coming at birth. Upper 7 and lower 7 is coming at the age of 3 years, beginning of calcification, and upper 8 and lower 8 at the age of 8 years. Then for crown completion, they take about 3 to 4 years. Then eruption. The upper molar and lower molar is coming at the age of 6 years. Upper 7 and lower 7 is coming at the age of 12 years. And upper 8 and lower 8 is coming at the age of 18 years. You see, there is a sequence of 6, 12, and 18. 6 ones are 6, 6 twos are 12, and 6 threes are 18 years. This is the table of the 6. And root completed it takes about 3 years for completion of the root. Guys, after 10 minutes, the meeting will be closed. Then I will start again another meeting. Okay. So how many surfaces are there on the maxillary molars? 5 surfaces as usual: buccal surface, lingual surface, mesial surface, distal surface, and occlusal surface. You see, the occlusal surface is a little bit more complicated. It has 1, 2, 3, 4 cusps, 1, 2, 3 fossa, and developmental groove, multiple supplementary grooves. And you see, this is buccal side. From buccal side, we can see the 2 buccal roots and 1 palatal root. On the lingual side, we can see only 1 big palatal or lingual root. Mesial side, 1 big root and another palatal root. Distal side, palatal root, and 1 distal root. So we can see all these things. Buccal aspect. 4 cusps and 3 roots are seen. All are seen from the buccal aspect. You can see all the features of the tooth. Geometrical outline is trapezoid in shape. You see, the cervical area, there is a small arm, and in the occlusal area, there is big arm. These 2 arms is parallel to each other, and there are 2 equal arms which are not parallel. This is on the mesial side and distal side. So the buccal geometrical outline of the buccal side is trapezoid. The similar geometrical outline is present on the lingual side. Remember, the buccal, what we have, the similar we have in the lingual side. The crown outline, mesial outline till the contact area. You see, this is the mesial outline starting from the cervical line to the contact area. This is the contact area. Okay, maximum height of contour is straight. So mesially it is coming straight, but then convex. Okay. Mesial outline is straight till the contact area at the junction of the occlusal and the middle third, and distal outline is convex, but then convex. Mesial slope of the mesiobuccal cusp. This is the slope of the mesiobuccal cusp is convex, and this is the slope of the distobuccal cusp. This is also convex. So mesial outline is straight, but then convex. Distal outline is convex and but then convex. This is our mesial and distal outline. The cervical line is almost straight, but with little, this 1 millimeter, only 1 millimeter depth is there. Cervical line is straight or slightly convex. The occlusal outline, the mesiobuccal cusp is broader than the distobuccal cusp. Okay, this is the mesiobuccal cusp. You see, mesiobuccal cusp is very big than the distobuccal cusp, and between the cusp there is a groove. This is mesiobuccal developmental groove, which is, but distobuccal cusp is higher and sharper, longer and sharper. You see, there is a space between the line, but there is no space. It's higher and longer. The mesolingual cusp can be seen between the two buccal cusps. You see here, the mesolingual cusp is seen between the two buccal cusps, the mesobuccal cusp, histobuccal cusp, and in between the two cusps, we can see the mesolingual cusp because the mesolingual cusp is the highest, the longest, the largest cusp. That is why it is seen also from the other side. Surface anatomy, cervical ridge is there. Of course, in the cervical one, the cervical ridge is there. Buccal developmental groove extends to the middle of the buccal surface, separating the two buccal cusps. You see, this is buccal developmental grooves. This is buccal side, there is one developmental groove. On the lingual side, there is one developmental groove. And this developmental groove is actually separating the mesial cusp and distal cusp. So on the mesial buccal side, mesiobuccal cusp separating the distal buccal cusp with a groove. The groove may, what is the fate of the groove or what is the pattern of the groove? These developmental groove either split into two shallow grooves, and finally, final termination, two shallow grooves and fade out, or fade out with a single line, or maybe end in a fault pit. So there may be three features. One is either it itself with a single line fade out, or it branches and fade out, or it may end into a false pit. If there is a false pit, this is of clinical importance. If we see in any patient that there is a small pit on the buccal or lingual side with the developmental groove, we should warn the patient about his cleaning, and we should tell them that in advance hand he should take an restoration on the pit. Why? Because especially if on the buccal or lingual side for the posterior teeth, it cannot be seen in the mirror. The patient cannot check whether the caries started or not started. So maybe unnoticedly the caries will extend and the tooth will be destroyed. So we should warn the patient that brother or sister, you must take care about this spot, and we should in advance and we should make a restoration for prevention of further caries. Anyway, the roots. There are two roots, buccal side and one is parietal side. There is root trunk at the cervical third. It has a developmental groove. This is the root trunk, you see. This is the cervical line. This is the starting of the furcation area of the root. This is a very big area which is known as root trunk. And in the root trunk, there is a depression. Depression is present, developmental depression. The mesiobuccal root curves distally at the middle third, you see. The mesial root, mesiobuccal root goes on the mesial side at the near the middle area. It goes to the distal area. So it looks like a banana. First goes on the mesial side, then goes to the distal. Distal root is similarly, first goes on the distal side, but then at the middle third from the middle half, it goes to the mesial side in the opposite direction. So both is little bit curved on their opposite side. The palatal root is the longest one and appears between the two buccal. The palatal root can be seen from the opposite side also, buccal side also. The lingual aspect, you see, the geometrical outline and outline is similar to the buccal aspect. Means the geometrical outline is trapezoid, the buccal outline is, mesial outline is straight, but then convex, distal outline is convex and but then convex. The lingual divergence is present there. The lingual side is smaller than the buccal side. The mesolingual cusp is larger than the distal lingual cusp. This is the mesolingual cusp, very big, and this is the distal lingual cusp, this is smaller. Okay. Lingual developmental groove is present. Lingual developmental groove separates the two lingual cusp and may end in a lingual pit. You see here, this is the lingual developmental groove like the buccal side. This groove is present between the two cusps, but its fate usually it ends with a lingual pit. If this lingual pit is present, we must warn the patient that you must make a restoration in advance and preventive measurement for this area. The lingual groove is in line with the palatal root apex. You see the lingual groove, this is the lingual groove, is in line with the apex of the palatal root, same line, this is straight. The three roots could be seen from the palatal side because the palatal root is very big, almost completing the whole area, but on the both surface you can see the mesial part of the mesial root and part of the distal root because there is only one root, so the three root can be seen from here. On buccal side, from buccal side, you can see all the three root very nicely. The parietal root has a developmental depression. This is the developmental depression of the parietal root. There is a developmental depression on the parietal root, that is very well known. Tubercle of cavity is present with the mesiolingual cusp. Because the mesiolingual cusp is here, the tubercle of cavity. This is the actual tubercle of cavity. You can see this tubercle of cavity is present. The cavity is present with the mesiolingual cusp. The mesial aspect. What are the view from the mesial aspect? The geometrical outline is trapezoidal in shape. Okay, this is trapezoid with the bigger arm in the cervical line and smaller arm on the occlusal line. Why? It is opposite to the buccal side. Why? Because the occlusal table gradually becomes smaller. We told you in the physiological tooth form, we told you about this, right? Why the table is small? Because we need a big base and a small table so that during mastication of the food, grinding the food, the tooth is stable. If the table is big and the base is small, it may break down or it may not able to take all the strength forces. You see the outline, buccal outline and lingual outline. The buccal outline is usually convex at the cervical one-third due to cervical ridge. It is true for all tooth. Then become concave at the middle third. Little bit convexity is there on the middle third. Okay. We have a trapezoidal shape. Geometry outline is trapezoidal shape. The outline is buccal outline is convex at the cervical third for the cervical ridge, then become little depressed or concave at the middle third, and then become straight at the occlusal third. So it is convex, concave, but then little bit straight on the buccal side. Lingual side is a gradual convex with the maximum convexity at the middle third. The lingual outline is convex with maximum convexity at the middle third. The mesiolingual cusp is the largest cusp and tubercle of cavity is attached to it. The mesiolingual cusp is the largest, and you see the cusp of cavity is present with the tooth. If you have sample or model, inshallah, in the class, we will show you about this cusp of cavity. The mesial marginal ridge is well developed. This is the mesial marginal ridge. Mesial marginal ridge means the outline of the mesial side is very well developed. The cervical line is shallow and curved occlusally. Okay, this is a little bit shallow and curved occlusally. The surface anatomy, the contact area present at the junction of the occlusal, you see here. This is the occlusal one third. You see, this is the occlusal one third. This is the middle third. This is the cervical one third. Okay, we have divided. And this line, yellow line, dividing the tooth into buccal half and lingual half. The contact area is at the junction of the occlusal one third and middle third, and little bit buccal from the midline. Okay, so you got the position. It has two axes. One is it is at the junction of the occlusal one third and middle one third, and little bit buccal from the central line. If all the posterior tooth, their contact area is usually little bit buccal to the midline. The roots. You see the mesiobuccal root. Mesiobuccal and palatal roots are seen. This is the mesiobuccal root. This is the palatal root. And mesiobuccal root, you see, the root trunk occupies the whole of the tooth almost. The palatal root is longer and banana shape. Banana shape means it is curved. You see, this is longer and with a banana shape. The mesiobuccal root is broader and covers about 2/3 of the root trunk. Almost 2/3 of the root trunk is covered by the mesiobuccal root. Distal aspect, similar to the mesial aspect, but difference is the crown converges distally. We told you that in case of maxillary, all the molars, the lingual side is little bit smaller than the mesial side. There is lingual convergency and there is distal convergency. But maxillary first molar, the lingual convergency is not there, lingual divergency is there. Lingual side is bigger than the mesial side, but lingual side, distal side is smaller than the mesial side. The distal marginal ridge is more cervically present. This is distal marginal ridge is little bit nearer to the cervical area, nearer to the cervical line. The cervical line is nearly straight because almost straight, there is no depth. The contact area is broader than the mesial and located on the middle third. This is on the middle of the middle third. Okay. The three roots could be seen. All the three roots could be seen. Why? The palatal root is seen here big. The distal root is seen, and behind the distal root, you can see the small part of the mesial root because mesial root is broader than the distal root. So when you see from the mesial side, the distal root is behind, covered, wholly covered by the mesial root. But when you see from the distal side, the distal root is small, it can be seen, and behind you can see the part of the mesial root. So this is one of the important feature of side determination. In the question, if we tell you that all the three roots can be seen from this side, then you must understand this must be distal side, because from distal side only the small distal root is present, the mesiobuccal root is also present because it is bigger seen from behind, and palatal root is present. So it must be distal side. Okay. The root trunk is longer than the mesial. The mesial side, the root trunk is a little bit smaller. Distal side, the root trunk is furcation area a little bit far, so root trunk is a little bit bigger. Four cusp can be seen from this side. Why? Because all the distal roots, distobuccal, distolingual, is smaller than the mesiobuccal, mesiolingual. So you can see the smaller roots as well as behind there is bigger roots. Cusp, all the cusp can be seen from this side. Occlusal aspect, you see, occlusal aspect is very nice. The four cusps, according to the size, are mesiolingual, mesiobuccal, distobuccal, distolingual. You see, number one is mesiolingual cusp. And cusp of Carabel is always present with the mesiolingual cusp. Number two is mesiobuccal. So it is going actually, you see the clock anti-clockwise. If you see this is 6 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 9 o'clock, right? So it is anti-clockwise rotating. There is always there is one question from here, according to the size of the cusp. So remember this picture, that this is starting from the mesiolingual cusp and will run anti-clockwise. Mesiolingual, mesiobuccal, distobuccal, distolingual. The distolingual is the smallest cusp, and it gradually becomes smaller and smaller in the second and third molar. Sometimes it is not present in the third molar. There is only three cusps in the second or third molar. And you see, this is the mesiolingual cusp. There is a ridge, cusp ridge. This is distobuccal cusp. There is a cusp ridge. This cusp triangular ridge and this triangular ridge is continuous and make a transverse ridge. This transverse ridge is known as oblique ridge. It is rhomboidal in shape. You see the rhomboidal. This is a square. All the sides are almost equal, but the angles are not right angle. This is the mesiobuccal angle, and it is distolingual angle. These are acute angles, smaller than 90 degree. And this is mesiolingual angle, and this is distobuccal angle. These are obtuse angle, more than 90 degree. This is the feature of the rhomboid. Two angle is acute, two angle is obtuse. You see here. The mesial outline is longer than the distal outline. Why? There is distal convergence. So mesial outline is bigger than the distal outline. The lingual outline is longer than the buccal outline because there is lingual divergence. Occlusal aspect, you see here, this is another picture, you see, very nice. This is the, forecast, 1, 2, 3, forecast, which I think this is the mesolingual cast, the biggest one. This is the distolingual. 1, 2, 3, 4. This should be like this. Mesolingual, there's a distolingual, mesolingual, this is distolingual, and then distobuccal, distolingual. These are like this. Yeah, mesolingual, then mesiobuccal, then distobuccal, then distolingual. Yeah. This is lingual side. Okay, anyway. So here you can see here, this is castle of Caravelle is present here, and this is the fossas present, one central fossa with two triangular fossa on the both sides, and there is a fossa here also. This is known as distal fossa. The distal fossa is present here. So this is a detailed picture of Dr. Savaria. You can see here, this is our cusp of Caravelle present. Okay, you can see like this. This is cusp of Caravelle and tubercle of Caravelle and oblique ridge. You see the oblique ridge connecting the two transverse ridge. One is on the mesolingual cusp, one is on the distobuccal cusp. What are the elevations and depression present on the abyssal surfaces? Depression, two major fossa and two minor fossa is present. Major fossa, one is, you see the central fossa. This is major fossa. Central fossa is present, roughly triangular and mesial to the oblique ridge. This is the oblique ridge. This is the oblique ridge. This is the mesolingual cusp. So the central fossa is mesial to the oblique ridge, on the mesial side of the oblique ridge. Oblique ridge is always to the distal side. And distal fossa is there. This is distal fossa. There is a distal fossa. It is linear in shape, roughly linear and distal to the oblique ridge. So oblique ridge on the mesial side, there is central fossa, which is triangular in shape, and on the distal side, there is distal fossa, which is roughly linear in shape. So it has two fossa, major fossa related with the oblique ridge. Two minor fossa, the minor fossas are the triangular fossa, which are usually related with the marginal ridges. The marginal ridge, this is mesial marginal ridge, this is distal marginal ridge. The mesial triangular fossa, minor fossa, is present with the mesial marginal ridge. The distal triangular fossa is also a minor fossa, is related with the distal marginal ridge. You see here, these are the two minor triangular fossas. This is uh, linear fossa, this is roughly linear and distal fossa, and this is central fossa, triangular in shape. So we have four fossas, two bigger and two smaller, two major, two minor. Developmental groups, you see the developmental groups. The red areas, red lines are the major developmental groups, and the blue areas are the supplementary developmental groups. Supplementary means these may be present, may not be present in tooth. May be present, may all may be present, and some few may be present. So actually, this is our central fossa. This is distal triangular fossa, mesial triangular fossa. A groove starting from the central fossa connect the mesial triangular fossa and connect the distal triangular fossa. After going to the distal triangular fossa, this developmental groove is divided into two parts. One is lingual fossa and another one is distal, going to the distal marginal ridge. And from the central fossa, another fossa runs on the buccal side to divide the two buccal cusps, mesiobuccal cusp and distobuccal cusp. And this fossa goes through the marginal ridges and reaches the buccal side. Central developmental groove connects the central fossa with the mesial triangular fossa and extends distally towards the distal triangular fossa. Well-defined buccal developmental groove originating in the central fossa divides the buccal cusp. Here, the buccal developmental groove. From the dental distal triangular fossa, one groove radiates lingually and another towards the distal marginal. One lingually and another towards the distal marginal ridge. Okay, so this is the developmental or primary developmental groups and supplemental secondary groups. Do you have got the clear idea about this group pattern? Because this is very important for your examination. Surface anatomy again. This is central fossa. This red one, you see the central fossa. This is the oblique ridge. This is the oblique ridge. Okay. These are the marginal ridge, mesial marginal ridge. These are the distal marginal ridge. Okay. Now you can see the central fossa is mesial to the oblique ridge, and this is there will be lingual. This is central pit, central fossa and central pit. This is distal mesial triangular fossa. This is mesial triangular pit or mesial pit. This is distal fossa. Distal fossa is distal to the oblique ridge. There is distal pit. This is distal triangular fossa. Distal triangular fossa. There is also a distal pit. This is buccal developmental groove dividing the two buccal cusps. This is mesio-buccal cusp, disto-buccal cusp. They divide the two buccal cusp and come on the buccal side. You see, I told you that buccal developmental groove is present on the buccal side. They come to the buccal surface and then fades out or branch out and fades out. This is the central developmental groove connecting the mesial triangular fossa, and from mesial triangular fossa, they are going to the mesio-buccal developmental groove. This is mesiolingual developmental groove. This is transverse groove of the oblique ridge. Okay, transverse groove of the oblique ridge means they come through the oblique ridge. They overlap the oblique ridge and connect the distal triangular fossa here. Distobuccal developmental groove. Distolingual developmental groove. So the central fossa, the developmental groove is coming to the distal fossa, then connecting the distal triangular fossa, then branching out to the developmental to the marginal regions. This is lingual developmental groove, which divides the lingual cusp, mesiolingual cusp and distolingual cusp into two halves on the lingual side. Cusp of Caravage is present here. Okay, all these are the features that you must remember one by one. Okay, the pulp cavity, the tooth has three roots and we have four canals. This is one important feature. We have three roots, but we have four canals. Why four canals? Because mesio-buccal root, usually they have two canals. Palatal root has one canal, distobuccal root has one canal, but mesio-buccal root has usually two canals, split into two parts. The pulp chamber is broad with two pulp fronts wide opening for the palatal and mesio-buccal root canals. You see here the buccal lingual section. This is buccal side and this is lingual side. Here is buccal lingual section. So it's buccal and lingual. So you can see the mesio-buccal. It's a mesio-buccal root. The palatal root canal is the most open among the three and wide, easy to access, straighter and longer. When you open the root canal, when we want to make a treatment for the root canal treatment, this area we cut from here. We cut, and we readily see that the palatal canal is very big and very nicely open, so we can both ways. We can clean it nicely, and then we have to find out the mesio-buccal canal and the distobuccal canal. The mesio-buccal root has two root canals, one buccal and one lingual, with either one or two apical foramen. They may close in one apical foramen, or they may differently, they may end in two apical foramen. So there is a variation on the mesio-buccal root. The mesio-distal section, two pulp front is there. Pulp chamber is not that much wide. The mesio-buccal and distobuccal canals are narrow and tapering to the apex. On the mesio-distal section, you can see only the buccal side. The buccal side, there is two roots, mesio-buccal root and distobuccal root. Mesio-buccal root, even there is two canals, you can see only one canal because one is superimposed on another, right? So you can see the mesio-buccal canal, you can see the distobuccal canal, the narrow and tapering to the apex. Tapering is becoming more narrower to the apex. The distobuccal root canal is relatively straighter and small in cross section with fewer variation of the canals. Distobuccal root is usually smaller in size but more narrow. It is very difficult to prepare the distobuccal canal because it is very narrow, though it is short, and there may be curvature also in the distobuccal. This is the X-ray you can see. This is the palatal canal, very big, strong. You see how wide it is in the neck area. This is the distobuccal canal, and in the mesio-buccal root, there are two canals. One is on the buccal side, one is on the lingual side. There is two canals, so altogether 1, 2, 3, 4 canals. But you see, this is number 7. Number 7 has 3 canals. Every root has 1 canal. So this is a little bit more complicated, upper 6. And most of the time, the interesting point is that most of the patient will come to you for root canal treatment on the maxillary 6 or mandibular 6. Why? Because these are the oldest tooth. The tooth comes in oral cavity at the age of 6 years when the patient is not able to take care of his mouth. 6 years, 7 years, 8 years boy, if the parents are not guiding them to take oral care, they are misguided. They do not brush regularly. Even they brush, they don't brush properly. They do not floss. They do not gargle. They do not clean the mouth nicely after eating food. So what happens? Very readily they got caries on the number 6. They got caries on the deciduous tooth also, but deciduous tooth is replaced. But permanent 6 is damaged. And at the age of 12, 13, 14, 15, 20 years, they will come to you, doctor, I have a pain. Where? In the maxillary or mandibular first molar. Needs root canal treatment. Okay, this is the reason. The canal position you see, this is the 3 canal position. This is the palatal root. The palatal canal is just under the palatal cusp. And mesiobuccal cusp is under the mesiobuccal cusp. Okay, so if you make a straight line, from this straight line, the distobuccal canal is little bit more distally and little bit more lingual. Okay, lingual means to the palatal area and to the distal area, not under the distal cusp. The oblique ridge, you see the oblique ridge is here. All the 3 canal is present mesial to the oblique ridge. Nobody will come to the distal to the oblique ridge. Okay, so these are the
Doctor,
oblique. Yes.
in the clinic, when I see the tooth, every cusp represents a canal or not?
No. Every cusp will not represent a canal. That
How
is
can I
why
know that?
actually in the endodontic class they will teach you again about the position of the canal. Okay, no worries.
Okay.
We are giving you this idea that for maxillary first molar, palatal cusp, usually the palatal cusp, under the palatal cusp there is palatal canal, under the mediobuccal cusp there is mediobuccal canal, and if you make a straight line just before the oblique ridge, you will find the distobuccal canal little bit lingual and little bit distal. So if you come lingual and distal, you will find here. Okay, like this. A line drawn to connect all 3 orifices forms a triangle termed as molar triangle. This is known as molar triangle. All the 2 root canals are present here. So you see here 2 points. Almost always a second mesiobuccal canal is, that is mesiobuccal 2, is present in the first maxillary molars, which is located palatal and mesial to the mesiobuccal 1. This is mesiobuccal canal, palatal canal, distal canal. Mesiobuccal 1, we name it mesiobuccal 1. Little bit lingual to the mesiobuccal 1, there is another canal which is known as mesiobuccal 2. Usually, most of the time, you will find very narrow canal. So sometimes what happens, this canal is in line with the same line of the palatal canal. Though its position may vary and it can lie on the line between mesiobuccal 1 and palatal canal. Mesiobuccal 1 and palatal canal, if you make a straight line, sometimes the canal is present on the straight line. You see here. This is out of the straight line, this is on the straight line. So the canal position may vary. This up to this one is our maxillary first molar. So if you have any question about the maxillary first molar, today's lecture, you can ask me. In the next class, inshallah, we'll start maxillary second and third. Do you have any question, guys? Hello, no question?
No, doctor, thank you.
So we can finish?
Yeah, we can finish now.